All right, guys, I am super pumped to jump in to building knee stability during the squat. And because I just hear all too often with my clients that there could be knee pain going on, there's some too much knee tightness, maybe IT band tightness. We'll get into all of that, how you can avoid and relieve this knee pain when squatting, optimize your squat, avoid injury, all that good stuff. My name is Dr. Kyle Naylor. I am the head movement provider here at MVMTmentor. And again, this was one of the biggest questions dealing with clients and seeing to optimize a squat. It's gonna be that knee stability, because there's so many different things that play a role in the knee. And I'm gonna give you a nice little hint, which we'll go over a good, really this whole video is a huge bonus feature, because the knee pain that you have when squatting does not come from the knee at all. And I know that's hard to believe, but you're gonna have to really focus above and below the joint itself. And we're gonna get into all that right now. So before we actually get into what is wrong with the knee, what's going on during a squat, and of course the exercises to improve it, I want to go over just the joint itself, just very briefly. The joint, the knee joint, it's a hinge joint, right? So it's only really moving in one plane. What you want to avoid is the knee wobbling, caving in, going out too far, and really that too much rotational component to it. It puts strain and stress on the ligaments in there, but really the meniscus as well, which is huge. And that's a lot of times what I hear is, they feel the pain on the inside of the knee because that knee is caving in, which happens a lot, and we'll get into that. But you need to realize that the knee itself, it's coming from the ankle or the foot, the lack of mobility or the lack of stability. And then from the hip, the lack of mobility or the lack of stability. Because if you look at the knee, right, all the muscles that attach to the knee are pretty much going into that lower leg and coming from the hip as well. So obviously they're gonna play a pretty big role. So let's jump into now what is actually occurring. Why is that knee injury or why is that knee pain happening? So that way we can learn why it's happening so we can learn how to actually fix it, right? Because we don't wanna be chasing pain. You chase that knee pain all the time, loosen up the knee by rolling or something, T-band the quads, it's still not gonna go away. It's gonna be tight, cause pain just over and over and over again. You never actually get rid of it, but that's because you may not actually know the root cause, and that's what we're gonna determine here today. So when you're squatting, okay, you wanna keep that knee, of course, over those toes. And just to throw out a little myth here with that, the knees coming over the toes, the knees can come over the toes, that's okay, okay? You just wanna make sure the knees are in line with the toes though, okay? You don't want the knees caving in, which I see a lot of people do. But we'll start from the ground up because it's always the most important. When we go down and start squatting down, it's gonna start with the big toe and the intrinsic muscles of the foot, okay? That's really gonna be the stability aspect of it. If you don't have, you could lose all of your other little baby toes, all those little guys can go, okay? This little piggy, that little piggy, and the other little piggy can go. The big toe, however, try walking without a big toe. It's probably not gonna happen too well, right? The big toe gives you so much stability in the lower extremity. It is unbelievable, right? So we need to use that big toe and push it down into the ground, okay? Which reminds me when people say, oh, push through your heels, you really wanna push through the whole foot, okay? I see a lot of times people push through the heels and their big toe comes up. Point being, I have a whole nother video on squatting cues that you should watch and go over. But point being, those intrinsic muscles gripping the ground, using that big toe, pushing that big toe into the ground builds the stability. That builds stability for the foot, which allows stability to draw upward as well. The next is going to be the mobility of the ankle. The mobility, if it is not there, meaning if the dorsiflexion, okay, dorsiflexion is this guy right here, okay? That's plantar, that's dorsi. If that dorsiflexion is not enough, what happens as this foot comes forward and you want more depth, it causes the foot to cave in, okay? Because you can't go any further, so what happens is the foot, that load will cause the foot to cave in, causing the knee to cave in, so it all starts rotating in, okay? Again, more strain and stress put on that knee. And that's why that stability is important too, because that stability, you want to avoid that foot from caving in, causing the knee to cave in. Next, we'll look up the chain here. Look at the hip mobility and stability. When you're looking at the hip, you need that external rotation. Because what's happening is, again, go over in the squat cue video, you want to corkscrew your feet into the ground, but you want that external rotation. External rotation again being that guy, right? You want this guy, this guy. Because if you rotate as you go down, going outward, keeping those knees over those toes, stopping them from caving in. If you get to a certain point, which some people will, and you don't have that, it kind of wants to fall in. Again, causing that knee to cave in. You guys see a pattern here? The next is going to be the stability of the hip. Same thing, if you don't have that stability to keep that hip locked and pressed out, knee's gonna cave in. So that's what we're gonna be going over, is of course that ankle mobility and stability and the hip mobility and stability. I'm gonna give you some good exercises for it. But let's go over the biggest takeaway here is the knee usually caves in. Now, not all the time. There's of course always different scenarios, but mainly if you don't have the stability in the hip or the foot, the knee can wobble. So if you don't have mobility, a lot of times the knee's gonna cave in. If you don't have stability, you'll see sometimes the knee almost wobble. I'll show you in this one, but when you go down, you'll see it kind of go back and forth. When you have a mobility issue, as you go down, a lot of times it just kind of caves in and just sticks there until you come back up. Okay, so those are the main thing that's going on. Now, let's just jump into the exercises. Let's fix this dang thing so you can get back to squatting. Because I remember looking over this, assessing one of my clients actually. In 2 weeks, we got rid of his knee pain just because we took and stuck to these exercises, and it was just a matter of getting that mobility back in his ankle, right? But you need to learn the assessment because, you know, someone else or he went somewhere else, they would have been chasing the knee pain over and over. They would be like, oh, it's your meniscus. Let's fix the meniscus. It's a muscle imbalance. Throw it out. It's not a muscle imbalance, okay? Your muscles don't balance, crap. What's happening is you don't have the mobility, you don't have the stability. So let's fix it. Let's get into it right now. All right, so as I said, first and foremost is gonna be that foot stability, right? Because that foot, that's the thing that's anchored to the ground. I'm gonna kick my shoes off here. Yeah, that don't smell as bad as I thought. So here, what we'll do is I like using a pad. You can do this on the flat ground. I enjoy a pad though because it adds that, you know, challenge to add a little bit more stability and I can grip something. Because what we're gonna be doing are foot crunches. So I'm just gonna be doing foot crunches. As I do foot crunches, I like to just rotate my hips out as well. So you can see I'm crunching, but I'm like, my feet will just crunch, but then I like rotating them out, adding that hip aspect as well. Now, the hip crunch though, I know you might not be able to see it specifically, but we are crunching, we are sliding them in. We're not curling. So what I mean here is I'm gonna come up is, so when we do a foot crunch, we're not curling the toes under. We are sliding and building that arch underneath there, right? So we are sliding them in just like that. We're trying to grip that pad, okay? So I'll show you again from here. If you watch closely, my toes are not curling under like that. I'm not just curling them. All right, I'll show you this way too. Watch this one, I'm not curling it under. I'm kind of just gripping. It's really a very subtle movement, okay? But as it should be, this is the way you should walk too, grip the ground. When you walk, build that stability through that lower extremity. So what I would do, especially for a squat warm-up, you know, watch the video on how to warm up. You know, I'll post it above, but they're great. I would do like 2 sets of 20. So, but that's gonna help build that stability, intrinsic muscles of the foot and that big toe, okay? Next up though is obviously gonna be the mobility, okay? Mobility here of the ankle, as we talked about. My favorite exercise for this, again, if you clear up your ankles, whoo, boy, you are going to optimize your squat twofold just by clearing up the ankles, because most people have issues in the ankle. But what I'm gonna do here is grab this kettlebell, keep the heel on the ground or on the mat, whatever it is. Keep that kettlebell on the edge of the knee. You're gonna lean forward. I'm gonna lean forward. I also like grabbing this edge here to push and pull my body down so I can drive my body weight, the kettlebell weight, all that force is going into the ankle. I'm gonna sit here for a lot of time of like 20, 30 seconds, okay? I'm gonna do this again, a few sets as well to clear that ankle mobility up. Now, the next thing that we're gonna jump into though is gonna be the hip mobility and hip stability. So for your hip mobility here, I love and I enjoy this 90-90 position, okay? So there's two things that are gonna occur though when this is happening, and let me just check the camera view here so obviously you can see me clearly. So what we're gonna be doing though is jumping in here to the mobility of the hip, 90-90 position. Two things we're gonna wanna focus on. Obviously, as I said earlier, that external rotation of the hip is important in order to keep that knee out and from caving in. Although, when there's so much soft tissue like muscle tissue, going into external rotation, that's what you're gonna be addressing. You're gonna be addressing and stretching your muscle in this externally rotated area. So for most younger people, this is what's going to benefit you, okay? So what you'll do is you'll bring the belly button forward, chest forward, don't round the back out, okay? You're gonna lean forward, and once you feel that good stretch, you're gonna drive your knee into the ground. So I'm not, pushing my knee with my hands, I'm just driving it into the ground. Hold for 10 seconds, I'll go a little bit further, push my knee into the ground, so I'm contracting, hold for 10 seconds, go a little bit further, push, right, contract again for 10 seconds. After that, I'll push myself, come back up. Now, the other thing to look at though is the internal rotation. Internal rotation, usually older individuals, the joints actually get tight. So to open up the joint capsule, you need to do internal rotation, okay? There's a whole bunch of even evidence just due to anatomy on it. You can address the joint capsule specifically in internal rotation. What you're gonna do though with this is you're just opening up the capsule more, okay? So opening that up then will allow you to get more internal and external rotation. So how you do that is same position. You're gonna be here, hands behind the back, and you're gonna drive the knee into the ground. You're gonna drive it into the ground like you're doing that internal rotation, okay? So I'm gonna, hands behind the back, turn, drive, hold for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, turn a little bit further, drive again for 10 seconds. After 10 seconds, I'll go a little bit further, drive again for 10 seconds. And then of course I'll make my way back, okay? Now, last but not least, hip stability. One of the greatest exercises I love, especially doing this for my warm-up, is going to be, and again, in all of this, there are more exercises in the video for like the squat stability I go over. I cover all the squat stability, squat mobility routine, both routines that you can use specifically to mobilize and stabilize a little bit further to optimize your squat, so check those videos out. But this right here is an RDL, so single leg RDL. Thumbs up if you use this, one of the most badass exercises ever. It's just simple RDL here, single leg, coming back up, okay? But it implements that stability in the big toe, in the foot, implements the glutes, implements the core, right? So you're kind of getting a lot of bang for your buck here. Now, if you want to make this a little bit more challenging, you'll go down, you'll twist, open up, come back in, and then come back up. And what that's going to do is open that up, so really you're working on that external rotation a little bit further. So I'll show you from this angle, just so you can see. I'm going to go down, right, open that pelvis up, come back in, and back up. And again, great exercise overall. You can challenge yourself a little bit more in this twisting exercise. So I want you to give those exercises a go. Comment below if there's a different exercise or more optimal exercise that you like, and I'll give you my feedback on it because I'd love to hear your take. Now, of course, before you go, we need to go over the takeaways. The takeaways are very important when it comes to figuring out the knee stability. Is that number one, the knee stability, the knee pain that you're having when squatting is not coming from the knee. So don't go chasing the pain. Don't go chasing waterfalls. All right, that's enough of that. My point being, you don't want to run in circles by chasing that knee pain. Figure out whether it's coming from the ankle or if it's coming from the hip. And we actually have a squat assessment to determine, so you can kind of put yourself through the assessment. Again, I'll post and link to that video. Now, the next takeaway here is that when you figure out the issue, it may just be more than one. It may not just be a stability in your hip. It may not just be a mobility in your ankle. It may be coming from one place or another. So make sure you address, even if you figure out it's maybe just the mobility in your ankle, make sure you're still addressing the stability and the mobility in the ankle and in the hip elsewhere. And these should both be addressed during a squat warm-up, okay? And then for the third takeaway here is making sure that if you do have knee pain or issues squatting, don't continue to squat and work through it because really what's gonna happen, you're just going to make things worse, and especially if it's a meniscus, if it's a tear, you may have little tears in there, it's okay, but that inflammation is kind of like punching a bruise, where if you keep punching a bruise, it's not gonna go away. You have to allow that inflammation to go down, you have to allow that tissue to desensitize, so work on this, but don't continue working and squatting and aggravating it more and more and more, because I can promise you, you'll end up talking to me and we'll go through a plan a little bit longer. So anyway, again, Dr. Kyle here with Movement Mentor. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thumbs up if you did enjoy this video. Go ahead, hit notifications button to get notified for all these, squat month videos coming out. And then of course, subscribe if you have not already. And check out MVMTmentor.com for one-on-one coaching, other programs, blogs, videos, all that good stuff. Peace.